Hi, I'm Randy Horton, Chief Solutions Officer at Orthogonal. We're here for MedTech Spotlight Live, coming to you from the AdvaMed MedTech Conference at the San Diego Convention Center. You can't make it to every conference, and if you do, you can't talk to every interesting person in every conference. So what we're doing with MedTech Spotlight Live is curating a set of conversations with really interesting people in MedTech who have great things to share. So we're here right now with Lori Chmura, CEO of Nyra Medical. Is that correct?
Nyra Medical, yes.
Okay, so Lori, first tell us about you and your MedTech journey a little bit.
Sure. So I actually started my MedTech journey as a critical care registered nurse. So I have actually 3 segments of my career.
Okay.
The first was in critical care nursing. And then I moved into kind of Fortune 500 type medical companies. So with J&J, Covidien, and Medtronic. And then from there went into the startup world, which is where I sit today.
Okay, so now tell us about your startup.
Yeah, so Nyra Medical, we are a early stage, just moved from preclinical to clinical. So we've done our first 9 patients. And we have a device that treats functional mitral regurgitation. So it's essentially a heart valve repair device.
Okay.
We're a tech transfer out of Emory University. Company was founded in 2018, and we've just got funded in 2022. And as I said, getting ready, we're going into our clinical trials in the US in the first quarter of next year.
Great. Okay, so tell us about what you're treating. What's the current state of medicine? Why is why is your thing new and different and better?
Absolutely. So right now, functional mitral regurgitation impacts about 6.5 million people in the US. It's actually an $11 billion market worldwide. So it's a very big market. And what happens is after somebody has a heart attack, what happens is their mitral valve, they get some dilatation, if you will, of the annulus of the valve. So the best way I like to do it all the time is the most simple way to think about it. Your heart's like a heart, and here's your mitral valve. And so normally when the valve opens and shuts, it comes together. So when the annulus dilates, so your left ventricle gets bigger, it goes from being like a football to a soccer ball. What ends up happening is it pulls those leaflets. You have 2 leaflets apart, and now blood gets through there. And so you have blood now backing up. It backs up into the heart, into the lungs, into the extremities. Patients get very sick. They're not able to walk. Their activities of daily living are impacted. So what we do is we go on and we have a device that literally clips on to 1 leaflet. So it's single leaflet capture, which is really important. And it maintains the native functioning or restores the native functioning of the mitral valve. Currently on the market, there's a device, but it's 2 leaflet capture. And what that does is over time, it causes stenosis of that leaflet. And so the patients, the data I think is at 5 years, 78% will be dead. So our belief is that because of single leaflet capture and the ability to maintain the diastolic functioning of the heart, these patients can live longer, they get remodeling, and they can have subsequent procedures. So we call that forward compatibility, so that they have a lifetime of treatment.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's really neat. So I think as we were talking in preparation, what's really interesting for us about you, we're in the digital space, the software's medical device side. It's a very physical device.
Yes.
But data is an incredibly strategic asset for you. Not just like we have data that supports our clinical trials and shows our device works. So tell us about how you approach data.
Yeah, so data is an incredible big part of what we do. And probably the most simplistic way to think about it is for the procedure, to do procedural planning, we need to have data from the patient. So we get a CT scan, we get an echo. So we get a transesophageal echo where it goes down into the patient's throat. We also get a transthoracic echo. And then we collect data on their past medical history, on their medications. And we basically integrate all that data. We collate it, we make some assumptions. And then what we do is we use a software called Premencio. So we basically plug in all of that data with a bunch of measurements, and then we put that into a CAD program. We 3D print the patient's hearts. We recreate what the valve anatomy looks like using pig valves, and we tether them and put silicone on and whatever it takes. And then on our bench, we go through and we do all the testing before we go to do the procedure. So we know specifically and exactly where we're going to put that implant on that patient's valve to give them the best functioning going forward. So it's an aggregation of multiple components of data because the mitral valve is a super complex structure. And so all the physiology, all the hemodynamics, as well as the anatomy all come to play to make this successful.
Yeah, it's a multi-dimension motion, fluid,
Exactly.
pushing back.
Fluid status, anatomy, physiology, like the heart function, heart rate,
Right.
whether the rhythm is a normal sinus rhythm or AFib.
So let me get this right. So you get all these different data points, you integrate them into a single database with a tool. Is that your tool? Or is that a third-party tool?
It's a third-party tool.
Third-party tool for this. And you essentially use that to both custom print a medical device that is unique to that patient's physiology, but also then be able to run simulations, not digital, but real world simulations to further validate that the design is right.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we're able to see, we will take that implant and we will just implant that multiple times on a device called a pulse duplicator. And that's just replicating everything on the patient with our device and with our delivery system, so that by the time the physicians go to do the procedure, we have a proctor in the case who's able to give them explicit step-by-step instructions on how to deploy that implant in the perfect place. Precision medicine, really.
Yeah. So how many iterations is typical? What's low, what's high, what determines? Is the number changing over time? No?
It's definitely getting better, right? So as we get more information, it's super unique to each patient. So we had a patient a couple goes around when we were going out overseas, where we did it once and everything was just perfect based on the anatomy and physiology. We have the ones we were working on Friday. I think we went through it probably 5 or 6 different times in order to get the best location and get the feedback that we need and see how that's impacting it.
So it's not necessarily failure to have more times, it's just more work.
It's just more work.
And are you building up at the back end then a cumulative data model? And does that inform sort of individual cases, like you're learning interesting little things, or is it actually like a self-learning model that's getting smarter on its own? Or?
It's like a self-learning model that's getting smarter on its own. So we collect all the data during the case now. So now we've done the pre-procedural planning, and we're obviously in our infancy. We're new. We only have 9 patients in, but our vision is that as we get this data back, we store it in an in-house receptacle. During the case, we have imaging, we have videos of the case, and then we have case notes, and we get all of the data from the case. And then when we go back, we're able to go back through and look at, okay, this is what we planned, this is what we thought we were going to see, this is what happened. And then we can take that data and figure out which patients this is the most specific for.
So you're collecting data before and planning
During
the design process, then during the procedure, and then you're getting post-surgical data to track.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then so our ultimate goal is that we integrate all that data together into a single data set. And then we use a third-party adjudicator, a core lab, who is a lab of experts who objectively look at the data and say, yes, this works.
Okay. So then basically people are getting incredibly deep on a very specific thing.
Exactly.
So you said development started in 2018, you got funded in 2022. Was there an aha moment about this data piece? Did somebody get it from the beginning, or did you coalesce and be like, oh, wait, no, there's this whole thing we can do that'll change our whole story?
Yeah, you know what's really interesting? So I joined the company in 2023. So the company was founded, as I said, out of Emory University, and then it was funded, and then it was going through some of the development process. So I came in 2023, and I think we had one idea of how we were going to do things. But then what we found is as we went out into the market, started talking to people, there was so much we didn't know. And I think the one thing my team hears me say all the time, kind of cliche, but our ultimate goal at this early stage, which is where data is a big part, is you have a bucket of I don't know, which is super large. And then you have a bucket of we don't know it, which is not so big. And then we have a teeny little bucket of what we know.
Unknown knowns, unknown unknowns, known unknowns, unknown
exactly.
knowns. Yeah.
And so our goal is to figure out what we don't know, pop it quickly into the bucket of what we don't know, and then solve for that using data so that we have a much larger bucket of what we know so we can treat the patients. So it's been, to answer your question, an evolution. As we talk to different consultants, we have an incredibly talented team. So it's really about intellectual curiosity. What do we need to know? How does this work? Our physician, as they're asking us questions. So it's really been a process of evolution that we continue to build this muscle that we actually think is going to be a major differentiating advantage when we go forward to sell, to say we know exactly how this thing works and here's the data to support it.
And it sounds like the muscle is not just the data, it's having this team that thinks about it. Do you have people coming in the morning and say, I was just thinking about something last night, and they started asking questions of the data?
It's really funny because we have our team is mostly engineering right now. So we're just starting to layer in non-engineers. And it's really fun to see how the engineers think about things versus how the clinical thinks about things versus how I think about things. And I'm one of those inquisitive, I ask questions about everything, if it makes sense or doesn't make sense. But what I found is that no matter what question you ask, it does generate a thought in someone else. And so I love to see that there's no one person on my team that I would say they're the smartest person on the team, but watching them click with each other as someone asks a question and then it gets you thinking, it's been a fun process.
That sounds like it's fun. Talk to us about a couple of challenges, if you could. One is, which data do you try and collect, or at least make sure you don't throw out so you can go out and turn raw, whatever, into data? And then how do you think about appropriate controls on this data for FDA submissions or insurers or quality control, or who can touch it? How do you? There's a lot. It sounds like there's a lot of perspective here.
There is.
And you're a startup, so there's usually not infinite money for perspective.
So we basically right now collect what I would say is everything. So everything we think that we can collect is there. And then we have, so I say everything, that's our internal, like what's happening in the case. People are writing notes. Hey, this happened, that happened, take a picture of that. And then obviously all the imaging. And then we have a CRF. So it's the record, the official record. And that is the official data of the study.
Okay.
So that's collected in conjunction with what you would have in a normal clinical study and what the FDA wants. That data is pretty well protected. So our head of clinical regulatory kind of manages that data. And I would say that's probably under lock and key, or that is not just given to everybody. And then we have the next part of it, which is the adjudicated data.
Okay.
And so that's the stuff that the core lab looks at. And that's what really goes to the FDA. So that's how we know that what goes to the FDA is definitely, we have a robust quality system, we have a process, we have training. But having said all that, the ultimate challenge that we have, that I have every day, is that we have all this data internally and we have a team of really inquisitive people that are looking at it. Mm-hmm. It's how do we not make finite and definitive statements based on an internal interpretation? And how do we leverage that with the third-party data, recognizing that we have a brand new device, right? So it's never been done before. So if we go 100% on what the third party says, they may miss kind of the nuances of what our device does. But if we go 100% to ours, we may have confirmation bias. And I use the old cliche all the time, which says nobody knew they needed an iPhone. So if we totally go by everyone's looking at a Palm Pilot, you're going to say, we don't really need this. Right. So it's always constantly trying to pull those things together to go, no, wait, I get that's not traditional, but hold on. Like, how was this decided and how do we leverage that interface?
So we didn't rehearse this question or discuss this question, but let me ask, as CEO, I'm guessing you have a challenge of saying okay, there's been enough discussion, we just need to pick something and go. And when they're like, oh no, I have one more idea. It's actually worth spending another hour or day or whatever. How do you know how to do that?
That is the hardest part of the job, is because, and it's funny, I just had this conversation with a young engineer and he made a comment about, he heard from somebody, like maybe the team was disjointed, right? And it just seems like people are bringing up good ideas and nobody's listening. And I was like, okay, so we're clear. I said, I listen to absolutely everything everybody says. In fact, I write copious notes, right? I reread it. I relook at things. However, I may agree with 90% of what you say. However, I have to make the decision based on what's for the best of the business. And so I want everyone's input. I need it all. I want to hear it, but I want to always go back to what's our North Star? What are we trying to do? And how does it work? And I gave him the example. I said, imagine we own a 100-acre farm. And so in order for me to take care of my farm, I'm flying every day at 25,000 feet because I need to see the whole farm. You're in charge of the chickens. You're in charge of the cows. You're in charge of the corn. I need to know what's happening in all those areas. But just because you tell me the corn's going to die if I don't give water, I have to decide if it's more important to give it to the chickens.
Okay.
And so I hear you, I understand it, but that's what my job is. And so it's hard sometimes. And sometimes like we have to make some really tough decisions.
Sure.
But I always try to make sure everyone's voice is heard. I understand what the potential outcome is going to be, and then articulate that fact to the team so that they can understand it. I probably don't do that as well as I could sometimes because we're moving so fast when you have to make sure everybody's at the same level of understanding.
Right.
But that's the key.
And how hard is it to tell this story to investors?
It's actually not hard. I will say this is my third startup company that I've been the CEO of. And this one, it's a big market. It's a truly an unmet need. People are pretty familiar with it. And I think our device is so simple and elegant. And it just is like one of those things that is, oh, that makes a tremendous amount of sense. So I think they buy into it and they're impressed with it.
Very good. One more unscripted question I'm curious about. You have some very interesting simulation pieces you're doing, both digital and physical, both. Has that game changed? Are there things you can do now that you couldn't do 5-10 years ago, or?
Oh, I think so. I actually think we haven't even touched the surface of what we can do. Like we're looking into right now a complete AI generated look at all of the data that leverages all of the AI. So I think it's evolved a lot. I think the whole 3D printing of the actual patient model and being able to use that, I think it was at its infancy 5 years ago. The materials that you can use, like right now we print on a hard plastic, but they're making things that are more and more like an actual patient. The fact that we have this pulse duplicator that literally mimics you can just set the hemodynamics of what the patient is. So it's evolved a lot. And I think our thinking about it becoming personalized medicine is starting to evolve. We think about it, cancer care has been personalized medicine for the past 5 to 10 years. Cardiovascular has not. So I'm really optimistic that what we're doing is helping to transform that into personalized medicine as well.
Well, that's very exciting.
Yeah, it's fun.
You're talking at the conference?
I am tomorrow.
Okay, what are you talking about?
So we're talking about, actually, it's an interesting panel that's really looking at I don't know if the right word really, but the impact of reimbursement and thinking through reimbursement strategies in regard to financing a company. And so it's really important, I think I talked to you about this a little bit, is that data is super important when it comes to reimbursement, and it's got to start early and you have to have a lot of it. And so we're going to focus a little bit on that.
All right, great. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Have a great conference.
Thank you.